Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of our Impact and Influence. We are joined again by Heidi Walkinshaw from Blackbird Collaborative. Hello, Heidi, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing, thank you. Now, for those that missed our session, I'm going to say months ago, I can't actually remember when it was, but it was a little while ago. Firstly, here's your prompt to go back and listen to it because there is just so much that we covered in that session, so much so that we needed part two because we didn't get through everything that we wanted to get through. So I'm not going to do an intro. If you don't know Heidi, go and listen to part one and we're going to get straight into things so that we can make the most of our time together. Now, Heidi and I were just having a chat around what we were going to cover today. And for me, Heidi, I listened to our session again this morning just to remind myself of what we spoke about. And you had just started your business. You're almost 12 months in. How time flies. So we spoke about a lot of the lessons that you took away when you were setting the business up. What's this 12 months looked like, and what have you learned along the way?
Well, I suppose
that's a big question to start with, isn't it?
That is. It's like, how long's a piece of string and how much time do we actually have when we kind of get into this space? So for me, I suppose it's looking at that, reflecting on those 12 months. I suppose it's been a big almost 12 months. You don't sort of realize how long that time flies, and sometimes it's biting off more than you can chew, I guess. One of the reasons, I suppose, was to slow down and spend more time with family and some things that were going on with my girls, and that has certainly allowed that. But at the same time, trying to build a business at the same time as having a family and doing all of the things can build up. So and you're not really told about this, or you don't realize this. We don't often talk about it when it comes to setting up, and I suppose maybe if we did talk about it, more people would be scared away. And there's a reason, I suppose, that most businesses don't go past that first 12 months.
Yeah.
In any case, I suppose the biggest things for me are ensuring that the systems and processes are in place, and I still need to, as much as my career, I educated on having those strict systems and processes in place. It's finding the time to actually do it. It's learning when to turn around and say, I need help and I'm going to outsource a particular part of your business to somebody else to do it. So the example I had of that was recently, and I'm also part of a writing group that, I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit as well, is just that I've got a children's book coming out in June, July this year. And we had somebody on board to talk to us about websites and SEO and those sorts of things from the author perspective. And I'm running a couple of websites. I run my copywriting content business website. I've also got my author website because it's two very different audiences, would you believe? So when it came to setting up that website, not so much the design, but also all of the back end bits and pieces for you to get found, for those SEO pieces. While I can do it, while I do know how to code, sometimes it's better to put your hand up and say, I don't physically have time to do this, and somebody else can do it for me and do a much better job than I can. So it's an investment that's worthwhile. So that was a big lesson for me. It's taken a while for me, almost 6-7 months for me to realize maybe I should actually invest this money. And I think that's where we can sometimes go wrong in businesses, is we kind of go, yep, I'll do it myself, I'll save money, without realizing that those small investments can actually free us up to allow us to do activities that will bring things in, and those will pay for themselves. So that was probably one thing I suppose I've kind of found. And realistically, I've been quite lucky over the last term. It's that I haven't actually advertised out yet or done any promotional kind of activity, because it's more been a slow burn for me. So my focus this year is to try and reframe or look at what exactly it is I want to achieve. And I haven't been great at sort of sitting down and putting out a plan, I suppose, in terms of what do I want to do, where do I want to go, what do I want this to actually look like. It is just me. Do I want to grow it? Do I want to get more people on? Do I want to continue it just as a sole trader, which is completely fine as well. But looking at that and trying to redefine this part is kind of going, right, well, what comes next? Because it's I think that's the thing, is we get started and it's all very exciting, sort of like a relationship, I suppose. It's all very exciting in that first 6 months, and then after that the reality kind of sets in and you're like, oh right, yeah, okay, now we're actually looking at something a little bit different.
It's very true.
So it's starting to redefine what that looks like.
I think a lot of businesses can relate to that as well, and even just like not necessarily new businesses that are established, but it's that New Year plan. We all we think we put a plan in place, the year starts, everyone at the moment's going, oh my gosh, it's already the end of February, and then the plan kind of doesn't necessarily get implemented very well, and before we know it, it's the end of the year and we look back and go, oh well, we had great intentions but we didn't get the results or the outcomes. And it's as you said, you've kind of got to go, okay, well, what is the actual plan and what do I want to achieve? Doesn't matter if you're new, we all do it every year, don't we?
No, we do. And I think that's the thing, is the lessons I've learned over the years from all of the coaching that I did and the training. I spend time consulting in other people's businesses and seeing those things that it's very different when you're sitting in that chair yourself. And as I said, coming back to that asking for help, is that I'm not great at asking for help. I mean, as you've learned over the years. So it is that when people say what your strengths and weaknesses are, someone's good at asking for help. I'm like, let's just go and try and figure it out. And like, and that's largely what I have done this year, is just winging it and figuring it out. But then at the same time, and I will continue to do that, is fall down, get up, make mistakes and keep moving. And that's just the way I am. I you try and change that, but it becomes inherent as part of your DNA almost. But things that I've learned in terms of joining organizations who are, for me, it's writing groups. So copy and content writing communities and an author group that I work with, and as well as juggling you're juggling with other people who are also juggling family commitments and things as well. So an author only last week that I'm in a group with, they were talking about the fact that finding that time to write, especially as a mum, is in those moments when you can. And this is why sometimes when it comes to books and it comes to getting them onto the shelves and getting them into real life, it can take so much extra time, because you're writing in those stolen moments that you have. Oh, okay, the baby's down for sleep, I've got a good half an hour now, let's see if I can get 200 words onto a page. Or yes, I've got to edit this manuscript, it's coming through, I need to be able to carve out some time for that. When can I actually do that? Largely while we have some more support, I suppose, around us in terms of hopefully partners being a bit more flexible. That's not the reality for everybody, and as women, we largely still do most of the work in the home. We're out there building our careers, and most of the work with managing kids as well. So it's a challenge that's not individual. It's that we're all in it without realizing it sometimes, because it can be a bit lonely, but it's also realizing that amongst that loneliness there are other people out there that you can reach out to and can help to support you to be able to get through those moments as well. Actually, when I think about it now, I remember a cartoon that an illustrator had done, and it might have been when my eldest was, she was only a baby, and she'd written, and I wish I could find it now, and I'll have to find it and see if it's just one of those things that rings in my mind. But she's showing, the main frame is essentially a woman that's up in the middle of the night feeding her baby and saying, well, you're not alone, and then showing all of these other houses in the dark that have all got little lights on as well, with other families that are doing the same thing or in the same boat. So we're all in the same boat, but just our boats are a little bit different sometimes, so depending on size. So it's I suppose it's trying to do all of the things and realizing that sometimes you've kind of got to go, I've got to slow down, or I've got to stop, or I need to do this, and still juggle all the balls in the air.
What's the best use of your time is the question that I find myself asking my clients a lot at the moment is, should you be doing that? Is it the best use of your time, and is it going to get us the outcome? And I even need to ask myself. Kylie often, will throw it at each other, her probably more at me, but it's like, as you said, I can, and I quite like doing stuff, but it doesn't mean I'm good at it, and doesn't mean it's the best use of my time. So yeah, I think that's definitely relatable.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's one of those things, it's finding what you're in flow with. So if there's something that you really, from me, I really enjoy, I find the writing process really cathartic, and I love doing it. And it's I've had some very interesting projects over the last sort of 6 or 7 months as well, in terms of variance in terms of what I'm doing, which has been fantastic, from my Blackbird side of things. So and that has it helps you to grow as a person too. So for me, wanting to be a writer means that I need to be able to write more. And I find that there's those parts that I really enjoy. There's other parts of my business that I don't love. For example, when it comes to my accounting and Xero and those invoicing and those things, it's like, okay, that's a task for me this year that I need to do, is outsource that part of it to somebody else. I haven't yet done that, but outsource it. And it's not a lot in terms of what I do, but at the same time, there are requirements that I need to have, obviously, from that side. Especially coming into charging GST and those sorts of things. It's like, I don't want to deal with that. So I want to deal with this. So I'm at that point, I can start to outsource that to somebody else who knows much better how to do things that are not going to land me in hot water with the tax office. So it's, those sorts of things, I think, as well. So as I said, my website design, I can do it. It takes up there's hours there that I now get back because I've decided to outsource that for a fee to somebody else who knows, and also valuing the knowledge that someone else does as well. So that's one thing I suppose that used to frustrate, it still frustrates me to some end too, is understanding that there's a real human on the other side of that work too. So sometimes there'll be, people are willing to give you their time, and I'm, I suppose, one that if someone wants to ask me a question, especially from PM space, all the knowledge is still there. I'm quite happy to give them my time and whatnot. But when it comes to certain tasks, there are some things in there that you need to kind of understand. That's a skill set, and you're paying somebody for that skill set. So while it's good to ask for help to some degree, know when you're crossing a line, and that help becomes more of you're taking advantage of a situation in the sense. So it's good to be able to sort of step back and go, right, okay, well, yes, I need your help. So what's the fees and charges, and what's it going to cost me to be able to use your services? So it's valuing that other human and the other person who's still trying to make a living as well on the other side.
Yeah, and it's like, I know we spoke last time about placing that value on yourself and asking, essentially for somebody to pay you to do something. And similar thing, right? Like everyone struggles that little piece sometimes with putting a value on themselves. But as you said, like when you're outsourcing, you're utilizing their skill set and their knowledge and resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a value on that.
There is.
Yeah.
And I think, when you do talk about that value piece, I think that's one thing that has been a challenge this year is working out what that value piece is and what that looks like from my services. And that's another thing I suppose I'm still learning is, what does this actually look like? And being in with a group or with an organization that's doing training and around that writing space, they can actually help you with knowing what to charge, or some of the ins and outs and the legalities of what we're required to ask and contracts and those things. So this is where it's good, is no matter what industry you're in, is find those organizations who are willing to continue training, that you can continue to do those training and support pieces that are going to help to improve you. So for me, this is something that I want to continue long term. It isn't as I said, I really enjoy the writing side of things, whether it be the content or whether it be eventually it'll hopefully lead to children's book authorship long term. But that's there's not huge amounts of money when it comes to being a published writer, but for me it's whether it be with the organizations that I'm with, the training organization that I've joined, is, you know, they'll do webinars on whether it be SEO writing or whether it be user experience writing, all of these things that help to improve your skills so that you can continue to work on those. And that's, I suppose, as I said, doesn't matter what industry you're in, you should always be learning and always be trying to, it doesn't matter how old you get either, is how learning and finding something new, because it's good to enrich your brain and think outside the box a little bit. And I think sometimes, you know, being online and being on social media and those sorts of things. I actually looked at my husband last week. There was something that came up in news, and I said to him, like, is the internet just making us stupider? Is that what's going on? Like, oh my goodness. I don't mean that. Like, it's just one of those things that it's being mindful of the information that you are consuming, and make it meaningful, because we spoke about it, but you're managing that time. And I think that that's one of the biggest lessons for me. Is I'm just as guilty as anyone of being, you know, the doom scroll and flicking between the apps. And unfortunately, I had to get back onto Facebook this year to join a couple of these groups that I've joined, and I don't love it. I like Facebook is, you know, a soul sapping, you know, destroyer of all happiness. But it's one of those things that, you know, sometimes it's mean spirited, but it's being able to sort of turn around and say, right, I'm on this for this particular reason. So let's not get stuck in the rabbit hole of getting caught, you know, monitoring it. So there's others that I follow out in different industries who say talk about on weekends deleting the apps off their phones so that they don't actually access that from their phones wherever they are. So I think that, yeah, if you are going to be, look at the knowledge, look at what you want to consume, and look at the what's going to help to give you happy neurons firing in your brain, and you know, help give you all that good stuff in terms of the learning within your frontal lobe, rather than the stuff that's gonna, as my grandmother used to say, it's gonna rot your brain.
We're just showing our age today, Heidi.
I know, right? I sound like a crotchety old cranky person.
Not at all. Not at all.
No, it's you know, I'm coming from the background I came from as well, is that and I suppose while I'm out of it as well, there'll probably be a part of me that will always be a trainer or a coach in some way, and maybe one day I will go back to that space. I think no matter what I do, I still bring that element into it. Even the poor young guy getting my car serviced yesterday had a meltdown on me and started telling me about all of his woes. Like, do I just have this face, this persona that, like, just tell me all of you? I've spent half an hour speaking with poor young Bailey about his woes. But it's one of those things that I think I'm really passionate about, you know, people going and doing training and learning, even to the point I looked at, you know, maybe I do attempt my master's, and my husband looked at me like I'm crazy, which, to be fair, I probably am. But no, it's not on the cards considering everything else that I've got going on at the moment, and juggling it all, finding the time to juggle it all.
Yeah. And one of those things that you've got going on is this book that you've mentioned a couple of times, coming out in June, July. What's the name of the book? We're going to give it a plug.
So my book is called Some Fish Have Moustaches, and it is a children's book for ages 3 to 7, and it is just a fun and quirky, very, very colourful picture book that talks about fish who have moustaches. So the fish, so big fish and small fish and long fish and round fish and fish of all shapes and sizes, including those that have moustaches. So
I love it.
It's something a bit fun. It had so this is where I suppose I need to, when I talk about finding those things and working out that next step, for me, it's knowing that I'm also adding what was essentially, I suppose, a pipe dream or a side hustle on the side. I now have to actually start working on as another business, because I need to be building a following there to be able to get book sales, because those sorts of things you don't just put your books onto shelves in, you know, your Dimmicks or your Hartog or your Kmart, Big W, and those places, and they just fly off the shelves. There's some legwork that goes into it as well.
I can imagine. Heidi, that's hugely out of your comfort zone.
Oh, massively so. So, for example, last week, as you know, I'm not a huge fan of networking and being in spaces where thankfully I didn't have to be up on stage last week, and I'm not comfortable in that. But it will get to a point where I'll have to talk again, which is fine. But we had a roadshow last week, and that's getting in a room with booksellers and other authors who are also in the same boat as you. Some of them are much more established and have many books under their belt. Some are debut authors like I am. And it's held by the publisher. And it's meeting with my publisher and the CEO of the publishing firm, and them asking things like, what other manuscripts do you have? And kind of going, right, I need to get those across to you so that's the other thing is it's like, while you're handling on this thing, and as I say to my husband, I need to work on the things that are bringing me in the money, but then at the same time, there are these manuscripts that also have that. Well, it's framing that focus as to where you focus your attention is what's the importance of that and what's the value of that. So for me, it's looking at those in my brain, it's changing that mindset of going, okay, these manuscripts are also potential income into the future as well, and I need to dedicate time to those in addition to my business, which is bringing in that cash flow at the moment. So it's kind of going, right, okay, I need to keep working on those because they want to see that I'm more than just a one book wonder. Which hopefully I am. So that's exciting. So for me, that means getting that website happening, getting a social media presence happening, and then I actually meet with a marketing team, with my marketing team and publicist next week. And they talk to me about what the next steps are in terms of the launch date. It goes to print, I think, the 28th. So it goes off, and once it's printed, there's 6,000 copies out into the world from around about July.
I love it. I mean, wow. When can I pre-order for a first birthday? I'll have it ordered. I think for me, like I really am. I am in awe when I hear you talk about this space, because I do know how much it's out of your comfort zone. And I think you mentioned something to me when we were kind of chatting earlier around this imposter syndrome. And I can only imagine how that feeling of, sitting in that room, being new to the space of this, world that you're, now found yourself in for good reason. But like, talk to me about that. How does that make you feel when you're sitting in that room with all those people that have been doing this for such a long time?
Yeah, it's really daunting. It's really daunting. And I think because I've always been, I think as I said in my last session as well, I've always largely been a creature of comfort, and jumping out of a career that I knew so well for so many years was a huge leap of faith. And going and having the courage, I suppose, to back myself and go, right, well, yeah, I can do this. I can write. I'm not, and mind you, I'd had a couple of colleagues that sort of said to me, yeah, you can write, because you kind of question, am I actually any good at this? Can I do it? Can I actually make a living out of this? And going into that room where you're with, it's a very different environment and very different humans in terms of personality types and expectations, and the ego is not there from real estate. So it's it's a different level of ego, I should say. So it's there's still that there, because it's people, you're putting your thoughts and your soul onto a page, essentially. And it's a very vulnerable position to be in that you are and anything that you are that you've imagined up is going there, and it's going to be judged. So whether you like it or not, you're putting yourself out there for judgment. And it's yours. You kind of sometimes will hear authors or writers talk about their book babies. And one of my writing mentors actually says, she said, don't refer to them as babies, because it becomes, you've got to be able to let go without that emotional, because people will criticize. Everybody's a critic. Doesn't matter what happens. And you have that imposter syndrome, I suppose, in terms of, what am I doing here in this room? Like, do I actually belong in this space? Is this, there's if anyone's a Hamilton fan, they'll know there's a line in there about I want to be in the room where it happens. And for me, it's I do want to be in that room where all of this happens. And there's this thrill and this excitement, and it's very subdued, but it's an amazing, creative and incredible space to be in if that's what you want to do. And this is what, and it's, as I walked in, I kind of went, oh my God, you settle in a little bit and you find a couple of people to speak to who are all right. The writing community is all incredibly friendly, and all very welcoming. The competition is, I suppose, it's there, but it's not. It's a very different level of competition, and people are willing to share their knowledge and share what goes on. But my publisher actually did say to me at one point, because I said to her, look, because I tend to ramble, as we know sometimes, I said to her, look, I'm going to go home soon before I continue to ramble. And she said, I love your rambling. Like, I don't think I've ever had anyone say that to me.
So much value in your rambling, and I don't think you ramble.
Thanks. But as she said to me, I said, look, it's just that somebody being a debut author in this space, it's so exciting and it's new, and it's meeting people who you see quite very well-known people in this space, and sometimes you don't realize that you're talking. Just for me, I ended up talking to somebody and got to know quite well, and it was only when I got home and they said, oh, look me up on Insta. I looked them up and went, oh my God, okay, you're actually, yeah, okay, you're quite well known. So but as I said to her, it's that imposter syndrome. And she said, look, she said, at the end of the day, she said, I've been a publisher a long time. And she said that imposter syndrome it's a good thing to have. A healthy dose of imposter syndrome is a good thing, because it means that you actually care.
Yes.
And that you're actually conscious of, what you're doing. She said some of the people that I meet that don't tend to have that vulnerability, or that I suppose imposter syndrome in a sense, are possibly not as good always as what they make themselves out to be. So
that's an interesting point.
So I think that no matter what industry that you're in, I think it's important to have that vulnerability is important, because it means that you are human. And we're all, we all have those vulnerabilities. We all make mistakes. We're all fallible in some way. But there's also a goodness there as well, and lots of good things that we can take away from it. So it
goes back to that, that learning piece too, isn't it?
It is.
Like when you've got that sort of that sense, for me, I think it means that you're open to taking on feedback, taking on new ideas, learning more, which is only a positive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that it's for me that next step is is moving more into that space, and that's what I'd like to be doing, I suppose, more. But it's just getting my butt into gear and managing my time to be able.
You've said it out loud now, Heidi, so we'll all hold you accountable.
I'm very accountable for it. Now I put it out there into the space. My goodness, yeah.
No, it's pretty exciting. So June, July, your books will be flying off the shelves from everyone who's listened today.
I hope so.
I hope so too. I do. I really do. Heidi, I think we've covered again so much today, but there's just there's in that space for anyone who's listening and thinking, I'm starting something new and I'm not so sure, or where or what. It's, for me, just listening to what you've been talking about past session and this session, sometimes it's just about getting started, isn't it? And really taking that first step and being brave enough to go, I'll give it a go and I'll give it everything, and make mistakes along the way, because we all make mistakes, but learn from the mistakes and move forward.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's the thing, is that don't be afraid to back yourself if you want to step out into business, whatever it looks like. I think sometimes we have this habit of overcomplicating things, where we overthink. Doesn't matter what industry you're in, and it's getting back to those basics. So making a plan, sitting down and making a plan, and having your lists around, this is what I need to do today. And sometimes you might just need to doesn't need to be the next 5 years, but what do I need to do today? Or what do
Yeah.
I need to do in the next 6 months? These are all the steps that I need to do to get started. This is my check-in at 6 months. These are all of the support networks that I can find when I need to be able to ask for help. And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need to, because there's some amazing resources out there who are happy to help you in whatever avenue you need to, and get back to training and really upskill. And the more you train and the more you know, knowledge is never wasted. So, and learning is never wasted, in my opinion. And that's from somebody who's not in the industry. I don't know if I harped on along about that, but
every industry though, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter what industry you're with, that knowledge, there is a wealth of experience out there, and knowing what is good stuff, the good nuggets that you can get from some of that training. There's obviously some stuff out there that you kind of look at it and go, oh, that's not for me, and that's okay. But find the stuff that works for you, and that the people that resonate with you and that are your tribe, and that you can learn good stuff off. And the other thing is finding time and brain space for you as well. So taking time out so you can get out into nature and get those happy neurons firing. And that's one of the things I think sometimes with starting your own business, you don't always make time for looking after yourself. Don't get too busy making a living that you forget to have a life. That was the saying that I was trying to think about before.
And it's a very good one. Yes.
So so I think sometimes it's taking time out and get all the happy stuff, happy neurons and happy vibes happening, so that you're looking after your mental health as well, because it's one of the most important things. And the happier you are, the more that you've got the happy neurons happening, the more productive and energetic you'll be within your own business, building it as well. And that's the other thing, I suppose, holding me accountable. I need to be better at this, you too.
Yep, me too. And I'm about to, once we finish this session, I'm going for a walk, Hides, because I need to get out and get some sunshine and some fresh air today, because I haven't done it.
Awesome.
Oh dear. Thanks, Hides. Okay. I love chatting with you. Really appreciate your time. I'm sure there'll be another time in the future that we reconnect and see how you're going and see how that book's selling and all those things. But really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be here.